I'm Mark Ramsey. I'm here in beautiful San Diego after 2 weeks of tumultuous rain. Lovely San Diego with John Decker. John is the program director, right? Program director of both KPBS television and radio. You know, television, that's radio. They call that radio with pictures, John.
I've heard it said that that's radio with pictures, yeah.
Now, the interesting thing about John is I haven't done a lot on the blog with regard to public radio. And John, if you know John's name, chances are you're in public radio. And now everybody out of public radio is going to know your name too, John. Now, John, one of the things that interests me is we've talked a lot about public radio today. We just had lunch. And it's common to use the term public media nowadays. And I'm wondering, why do you think public radio has so embraced that term media when in traditional radio we almost never hear the term media?
Well, that's a good question. I think it's mostly because we see it as an opportunity. You know, public radio has grown to be, in many markets, the de facto premier news and information service. I mean, and we see that over the past 10 years, this growth has really come to mean that public radio stations are doing so well, and we look at it as an opportunity for growth. We specialize in content. The content that we specialize in is news. And that's our mode of public service. And I'm speaking of news stations, not the music stations so much. So we look at the internet as an opportunity to continue that public service. And it makes better sense to say that we are a media company. We have different platforms. And at KPBS here in San Diego, we have 3. We're a joint licensee, so we have radio, TV, and the web, and our website. And some other things that we're working on. But the term media means that we're using these platforms as a way to serve our audience. At KPBS, our corporate development, ad revenue, corporate development revenue, comes in at about 20 to 25% of our overall budget, or overall revenue. Most of it comes from membership. So as we monetize, you talk about monetize, we monetize our relationships in the form of a membership contribution. It's no different. We're here at Balboa Park. This is, how many, 20 museums in this park here somewhere, 20 different nonprofit organizations that have members that write checks or give money because they like what they do. That's the essence of public media. They like what we do. They like how we serve this.
So you've got a more precious asset and a scarcer asset than ever, right, in this environment?
Absolutely.
And you've got fans that value it more than ever. And it seems to me one of the things that public media, public radio in particular, does so well is it's really, really sensitive to the appetites, the desires, and the passions of its fans.
Yeah, we were social media before it became social media. I mean, if you think about it, what is social engagement? We've been having events, right? We've been having events with our members for decades. Have them over at the station. We'd have them at restaurants or museums. We'd have film showings, or we'd do talks with reporters, we've been doing this for years. It's the essence of that membership connection, and we're very, very in tune with what they want because we've had a long time to do it.
I want to ask you about one of the bugaboos that I always feel as a public media consumer,
yes.
And it's basically this. I want to know if I'm a fan, and I think I speak for others in this category, if I'm a fan of, let's say, Terry Gross's show or On the Media, and I want to patronize that show, and I consume it only through podcasts. How come I can't pay for the podcast? How come I can't donate to the podcast? How come I can't support the podcast without supporting some station which I may not know, I may not listen to?
Because we like it that way?
That's such a bad reason that it may actually be accurate.
I know. It's what you're getting at is the ownership of that content. Terry Gross exists. Terry Gross has been on the air for
100 years.
100 years now, since the beginning, really, since the mid-'70s. She's terrific. She exists, and NPR exists, and many of these public media entities exist because stations like KPBS pay dues.
Right.
We talked earlier about this thing with Conan O'Brien and Jay Leno. Now they exist. One of the offshoots of this whole thing about late night is we suddenly realized that the NBC affiliates really have some pull. Okay.
Are you saying Conan's not going to PBS?
No, we can't afford it.
Tavis Smiley followed by Conan? No.
Oh man, how cool would that be? How cool would it? If we only had $30 or $40 million of R&D laying around. So the reason you can't is because of our relationship with NPR is right now at the point of, all of the money that would go to Terry Gross, would go to Fresh Air or on the media, filters through those stations because they own it. But KPBS owns a part of Fresh Air. We've supported it for years. Probably the biggest challenge that we face in going forward is exactly that. How do we smartly monetize Terry Gross's interview with so and so in a way that benefits both Terry Gross, and Terry's produces at WHYY in Philadelphia. That's where the show is produced. So if you wanted to pay 99 cents for her interview, how does it benefit WHYY, NPR, who technically owns and distributes the show,
right,
and KPBS, who broadcasts it here in San Diego? And we don't have a model for that right now. We don't.
Well, I've got a model.
Yeah.
Nobody's asked me. But I think why not have a situation where if the money, in other words, flip the funnel. Because the value of KPBS in the Terry Gross scenario is that you create exposure for KPBS and bring people to that show that wouldn't otherwise know about it, wouldn't otherwise experience it, wouldn't otherwise value it. And you also draw people to that show who would listen to it no other way,
right,
who are never going to go online and hear it or never buy a podcast or whatever. So you're a valid distribution channel. But what I'm saying is, shouldn't technically I be able to support Terry Gross's show and you get a check from the show?
So if revenue from podcasts, for example, of Fresh Air, be high enough that I and every other KPBS and every other public radio station be a beneficiary of that.
Yes, rather than, for example, I go to the NPR app, which everyone talks about as being so great. I find it to be clunky because I have to go through all these hoops to get to the content I want. I have to go through a station filter and this filter and that filter to get to the exact content I want. Just give me the content, I'll pay for the content, and then the money ideally should be shared back with the stations. And one other thing beyond that, I would love the capacity to dig into the world for the show that I'm interested in. I like the business on KCRW, for example. I couldn't care less about KCRW. I like the business.
Okay.
So I would love to get deep into the world of the business, digital world. I'd love to be at a business event, for example, if they had one. I would give money to the business, but I don't care about supporting KCRW. Isn't there a way to capture those dollars, or couldn't conceivably that be an objective, to capture those dollars?
It sure could be. It sure could be, but we're still at this point where very few podcasts, well, first of all, very few podcasts from the public radio world require money to begin with.
Right.
Okay, I believe. And I know.
By the way, I'm not saying I'm paying for a podcast. I'm saying I'm paying for the show.
Paying for the show.
Just what you asked me to do on the air.
But in what way? Through a membership donation? Through a podcast?
Yes, through a membership donation. Go to terrygross.com and make it out to Terry, and she'll be sure to share it with the radio station.
But how transactional is it? Are you going to say that give us $5 if you like the show, or
no? I want to be a member of the club. I want to be a member of the club, Beyond the Media Club.
Okay.
All year long, I'm a member of the club, just like I'm a member of the museum, right? Just like I'm a member of, Sirius XM, let's say. I want to be a member of the club.
I think it's a great idea. I really do. I think that there are lots of ways for stations, for public media entities, to commoditize this content, which, in my humble opinion, is the best stuff out there. I mean, we've got...
That's another point.
And if you throw in public television on top of it with all its dysfunctionality, the fact is that public media is making some great stuff. So yes, I want, in a perfect world, you and millions of people like you to be able to get to that content and to commoditize in such a way so that money comes back to me. Wait.
John Decker is the program director of KPBS Television and Radio, and one of the people to know in the world of public broadcasting. I'm so glad we've had this opportunity, John.
You're such a flatterer.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. And also, by the way, thanks to his name, the only guy I know in radio who's qualified to pilot a Starfleet vessel. Thanks, John.
This TV thing doesn't work out.